Parshat Noach, Yair the לימוד שבלרפואת כל החולים, ותוכם תניה בת הודה מרגלית, יוסף יאיר בן אביב אחיו הרב סיבן בן סימה, בתוך כל שאר חולי ישראל. Before we begin to enter into the story of Noach, there's a concept that we need to develop and think about. The world that we live in is very focused on progress and accomplishments. From a young age, from when kids enter, Adiel's already in first grade, there's already tests and accomplishments and progress. And I think one of the greater questions to ask and to think about with our families, with ourselves, is what is the definition of successful progress? Progress in its essence is positive. Hashem wants us to build and to create and do a lot of great things. But the question is, when is progress healthy and when is it destructive? And I think that we can learn the answer in the Parsha of Noach. In the Parsha of Noach, the Zohar says an incredible sentence that needs to be understood. It says the Sfat Emet in the year 1875, Bazora Kadosh Ktiv Noach Hu Bchinat Shabbat. The Zohar comes out with this statement, the essence of Noach is the concept of Shabbat. And the obvious question that we need to ask the Zohar is, why do you find a link between Noach and Shabbat? And I think that if we think about it, there are four connections between the character of Noach and the definition of Shabbat. The name of Noach is connected to Menucha. The idea of Menucha is relaxation. I'm not doing and I'm not acting, I'm taking a step back. Let's say on Shabbat, someone was offered a business deal of $1 million. With those $1 million, they can save 5 different schools. Comes Shabbat and says, you have to take a step back. There's no forward. I don't want you to leave your home. I don't want you to leave your community. I don't want you to leave your family. I am asking you on this day to take a step back. Same to Noach's name is connected to this idea of passivity and taking a step backward, not forward. If the world in Noach's days had so much progress, so many animals, so many people, in Noach's time, Noach decides to take a step back. And so that's one link between Noach and Shabbat. But the second link is his identity, his character. The identity of Noach is to do what Hashem said, period, and nothing else. Hashem said, build a teva, he builds a teva. Hashem said, save your children, he saves his children. Hashem did not say to save the world, he doesn't save the world. Noach is focused on one thing and one thing only. What I am told is what I do. Shabbat is not about you. And it is not about you creating. It is about you receiving the responsibility given to you. So Noach, like Shabbat, is the acceptance of responsibility. The third thing is that Noach's focus is not humanity. He is the only character that the world entirely is destroyed. His focus is, if we look at the end of Perek Vav, Vayas Noach kechol asher tziva oto Elokim. His action and his focus is Hashem, period. His focus is not humanity. His focus is not people. His focus is not progress. His focus is the essence of what does it mean to have a relationship with Hashem. But the fourth link, I think, is something very essential. The only day of the week that receives a bracha in creation is Shabbat. And says the Sfat Emet that this doesn't make any sense. Shabbat versus the other day has no progress. On the first day, Hashem creates light. On the second day, Hashem creates the sky. On the third day, He creates the earth and the deshet. On the fourth day, He creates the sun and the moon and all these great things. On Shabbat, He creates nothing. So we would have thought Shabbat doesn't receive a bracha. But Shabbat, different than the other days, has no progress, and flipped. Davka Shabbat is the day that gets a bracha. The day that gets the core of where everything comes from. And that doesn't make so much sense. But Noach is the same. Noach different than his generation. The generation of Noach is defined by the Timaleh Haaretz Hamas. And there are many translations. But let's take it on a simple level. The world is focused on limalot, to fill. They're focused on to do, to act, to work. and you look at the world the next day and it's gone. Noach for 120 years builds a teva. That's it. A few days later when he wakes up, he's the only one left. Noach is like Shabbat. He doesn't do anything, but for some reason, he is the continuer of the world. And so says the Sfat Emet to understand this, Af ki b'china zu hipuch hahigayon. This concept is the opposite. You would have thought that the world and generation of Noach would have been so successful. They were so active. They were doing and they were acting, and they probably got 101 on every single test. And they probably had 7 degrees. And they probably were able to conquer every single business. And with all of their progress, they lost it all. Noach, in the antithesis and the opposite of his generation, doesn't act, lives with minucha, with a focused reality, not a progressive one. And he continues the world. Says the Sfat Emet, why? Ikar toladot tluyin bezeh. Progress is essential. But the root of a healthy progress is that it has something called a vision. A vision not of what you're doing, but why you're doing it. I've been zocha in the last few months to Bezrat Hashem be in the administration here in Or Chaim. I've been given the zchut to try and help out the yeshiva of Bnei Akiva Bezrat Hashem next year. And a lot of the times my focus is, how do I get more students to get off their phones? My focus is, how do I get more students to put on and love their tefillin? And what the Sfat Emet is teaching through Noach is that our focus of numbers and quantity is destroying our students. It's destroying our identities. And we're not so different than the generation of Noach. We're limalot and limalot and limalot, and we fill our time and we fill our days. And all of that is essential. But the question is, do you realize that it starts from Shabbat? It starts from letting go. It starts from realizing that it's not about what you're doing, but it's about why you want to do what you're doing. And the bracha we have for this Shabbat as we enter into the Mabul of Noach is that we realize and understand that the answer for healthy progress is progress that is the goal is destructive. If the goal is progress, and the goal is Ivy League, and the goal is numbers, and the goal is degrees, and the goal is numbers, and how many zeros do we have in our salaries or whatever it is, that is not creation, that is destruction. But what we realize from Noach is that if it begins from a place of, I recognize that I'm not the center. Noach understands, like Shabbat, I'm not the center. If you come from that perspective, that isn't selfish and not just focused on your progress, then there will be eternal growth. We should be zocha with our families to really focus on each other this Shabbat so that we could realize eternal progress is knowing to let go of outside and go back home. To let go of the sukkah that we were just in, outside with the progressive world, with all of the great animals that we were sacrificing in Beit HaMikdash. Let go. Go back home. And then when you go back home, you know why. You have vision. And then your progress isn't selfish, rather selfless. Shabbat Shalom.